Hello, my name is Batiuk. I'm an archaeologist at the University of Toronto in Canada.
Hi, and I'm Livingston, the creator and host of the Ancient Art Podcast. We're excited to kick off Uncorked, the vlog series from Archaeology Now, where we'll be exploring stories about the history, archaeology, and evolution of beer, wine, and other alcoholic beverages from around the world. In this episode, we're lifting the lid off intoxicating libations as we uncover the origins of alcohol.
The history of alcohol is an ancient one, and it was a common element in most ancient civilizations. Now, humans, it seems, evolved to be able to metabolize alcohol. Genetic studies have shown that our early hominid ancestors developed that ability somewhere between 7 and 21 million years ago. One could say that we are quite literally bred to drink. Now, traditional literature is ripe with references to the discovery of alcohol, although they usually revolve around wine. Perhaps the more famous is found in the Bible, the story of Noah and the flood, where, of course, one of the first things that Noah does after the floodwaters have subsided is plant a vineyard and make wine, and then drink to excess to the point where he gets drunk and passes out in front of his family. Now, of course, the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, excessive drinking is one of the characteristics of the inhabitants of these cities. But more importantly, wine and drunkenness is central to the whole story of Lot and his daughters. If you're not familiar with what I'm referring to, look it up. The issue of the dating of the stories of the Bible aside, alcohol, or at least the knowledge of making it, were already well established by this point. So when exactly was it developed? Very probably it emerged with the periods of intensive food collection by our early ancestors. More importantly, it would have coincided with the first experimentations with the technology that we really sort of take for granted nowadays: storage. Crude vessels made out of stone, wood, or plaster would have contained and, more importantly, concentrated the material for the natural fermentation process to have taken place. This would have happened in the later part of the Epipaleolithic period and the beginning of the pre-pottery Neolithic period, so roughly between 12,000 to 7,000 BC. And it quickly developed from there.
So how exactly did we learn to harness the fermentation process? Again, if we look to the written record, we'd be led to believe that it was either accident or divine inspiration. Ancient Persian and Chinese documents tell us tales about people accidentally leaving out containers of grapes or grain, which spoiled after being moistened by the rain, resulting in this wonderful transformation. But ancient Greek and Sumerian accounts tell us that our skill for crafting tasty toddies was a gift from the gods. And in more modern times, while gazing across the sprawling vineyards of the French countryside, Ben Franklin penned the famous and often misquoted comment that wine is proof that God loves us and loves to see us happy. Nowadays, thanks to the compounding investigations of many inquisitive thinkers like Louis Pasteur, we understand the fermentation process better than ever. Broadly speaking, we commonly talk about two types of fermentation: alcoholic and non-alcoholic. In an extreme nutshell, alcoholic fermentation is when yeast converts sugar into alcohol. Non-alcoholic fermentation is usually when bacteria converts sugar, carbohydrates, or alcohol into lactic acid or acetic acid. Think of beer and sauerkraut. Both fermented, go well together, but very different processes and products. For our purposes, we're focusing on alcohol. Yeast is all around us, and it's been here long before us. Yeast is a living organism, a microscopic fungus that settles on all surfaces in nature. And if that surface has sugar, like some overripe fruit bursting through its skin, or a broken beehive with honey diluted by rainwater, then the yeast will turn that sugar into alcohol. So maybe those ancient texts speculating on alcohol's accidental origins weren't far off. A truly remarkable cave painting from about 8000 BC in Spain shows someone harvesting honey from a beehive. We can't be certain from this picture alone that they fermented the honey into mead, but it shows a concerted effort to cultivate and harvest a readily fermentable sugar 10,000 years ago. And then, to make alcohol, all it would take would be an accident. And if that isn't early enough for you, we can push it back even further.
Our earliest possible evidence of a fermented, and I hesitate to use the term beverage, comes from the Rekefet cave in Mount Carmel of Israel, dated to the Epipaleolithic period about 11,000 BC. Analysis of stone mortars that were literally carved into the floor of the cave have suggested evidence of a wheat and barley-based alcohol that was less beer and more like a fermented gruel. Some 1,500 to 2,000 years later, they seem to have the process down a little bit better, and at the now famous pre-pottery Neolithic site of Göbekli Tepe near the town of Urfa in Turkey, traces of beer have been identified, although not confirmed, in a stone vessel that was found in one of the structures. And at the nearby site of Uncorked Tepe, a series of stone cups have produced evidence of tartaric acid, which is one of the chemical markers of wine, suggesting that wine might have played an important part of the burial rituals at the site. The oldest confirmed intentional alcoholic beverage comes from the Neolithic site of Jiahu in the Henan province of China, and it's dated to about 7,000 to 6,600 BC. Although often referred to as wine in the literature, it's best to think of this drink as more of a grog, as it's this weird combination of honey mead, a beer made from rice, and a wine made from grape or hawthorn berry. Our work in the Republic of Georgia has confirmed the earliest evidence for making pure, unadulterated wine at the sites of Shulaveris Gora and Gadashvili Gora in the Kfemo-Kartli region, and this is dated to about 6,000 to 5,200 BC.
When it comes to something we'd recognize as beer, well, that depends on how you'd split that hair. But we know that a malted barley alcoholic beverage was being brewed en masse across the ancient Mediterranean and ancient Near East well over 5,000 years ago, which we'll discuss much more in a later episode of Uncorked.
Essentially, alcohol is natural. It just wants to be made. And it was not the result of a single genius. It was discovered numerous times throughout our history all over the world. And this is what we're going to explore in this series over the next few months.
Thanks so much for watching. Keep tuning in to Uncorked, and be sure to check out the other original video content from Archaeology Now.